You ever have a problem or an issue that you decide to just sweep under the rug and thought, yeah, I'll deal with this later? Or have you ever been in a relationship where it started really great and then as time goes on it gets worse and worse, and unfortunately too many of us have done this where we stay longer than we should have? Well, my name's Nathaniel, and in this episode of Kicking the Junk we chat with Carol Wideman. Carol, unfortunately, has been experienced all of these kind of coming into a head in time of her life, and she decides to share this story with us. During this, we really dive into how all these things can add up, and sometimes we neglect to take care of ourselves, and these things can come to a head and can put us in a really awful, dark place. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you learn something from this, because I know I did. And please, as mentioned before in the other videos, if you're at a point where you're just not sure what to do with your life, or if you're stuck, or if you're feeling like you just need to reach out to somebody to talk, please reach out to lifepurposefully.ca, because I know they'd love to help you out. I also want to let you know that I'm going to be starting a meditation class. There's no charge for this class. It's just to help people learn how to meditate, and I would love to guide you through this, because this is something I've been doing for over 4 years and very, very passionate about. So I hope you enjoy this podcast, and please like, share, and comment. I'll see you soon. So Carol, thanks for being here. I'm super glad you're here. Why don't you take a couple minutes and just tell me about your kicked in the junk moment and when you felt life just
got kicked in the junk.
Yeah.
So to make this setting and really paint the picture, it was October 2019, and I started seeing this man, and he was giving me real green flag energy. Like, he was my type, like, physically, and like he was interested in me and paying attention to me, and like
Perfect,
just making me, he was filling me up with oxytocin.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you want when you're starting a relationship. And it was just perfect. And this lasted for a few weeks, and it was casual and fun and all that. And then a few weeks later, I told him that I had feelings, and suddenly we were just in a relationship. We both worked in the same like field. So like, to remain privacy, I'm not going to say what, but
No, totally.
it was in public safety. Like, he worked in one area and I worked in the other, and we kind of like, our paths intersected a bit, and that's actually how we met.
Right.
Our job.
So it makes sense. You guys are working together, so things are good. He's your type. This is great.
Yeah.
And then things started to turn.
And then, so the wheels started falling off the bus, like, shortly thereafter. We had fights. Like, he was making me feel like I wasn't really a priority. Okay. And I want to say that it was because, like, he was stressed, or like he had a lot going on in his head, or he had a lot going on with his family or his friends or whatever. So I was making a lot of allowances for the things that he was doing or not doing, which is the issue. Right. And he also had this ex-girlfriend who pulled at him quite a bit. Right.
So he started to pull away from you, moved to her a little. You still felt like he was kind of pulling to her a little bit.
No, like, I'm saying that she pulled at him a lot.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Yeah, so she would pull at him, like, she needed help, she needed to talk, whatever. They would text, call, video chat, they would write to each other, which was really...
So, red flags.
Yeah.
Lots of red flags
immediately, like, the bells were going off in my head, and I, like, voiced my concerns about this person, and he assured me up and down that they were just friends, they had been in each other's lives for a long time, and that's not going to change. And he was like, I'm with you, like, you have nothing to worry about. Sure. And so I took it at face value. We would fight about it quite a bit throughout our relationship. Just things would pop up, like different situations where he would choose her over me, or like prioritize her, or put too much thought and effort into that relationship when it should have gone to me.
Right. And that's totally fair. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, we all want to be seen. We all want to be heard.
Yeah.
So things were starting to shift.
So yeah, things were starting to shift a little bit. We had broken up like several times. Like we would get back together a few days later, and like nothing would change. But like it's just the way it was. It was a very like toxic relationship.
So in one of those ones you should have got out of, but
yeah,
I've been there before. Unfortunately, I think too many people have probably been in those relationships that went on too long and didn't make the right. Might have made looking back, they'd made a different choice. So
yeah, definitely. Not to say that there were like good things about this relationship. Like there was
if it was all bad, you would have left.
Yeah, there's a reason why I was staying.
So there was some good stuff. Okay.
There was some good stuff, but it did get eclipsed by the bad stuff.
Right.
So let's fast forward to April of 2020. Right when the pandemic hit, I was involved in a very serious critical incident at work, and it destroyed my brain. It gave me PTSD. Like it gave me like an automatic response that I couldn't talk, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think, and like I'm trained to like be able to overcome those situations and like just dive into it and like shut my brain off and like my feelings and all that and just like go
and just be there for your
this particular file just like it stuck with me and it destroyed my brain.
So how maybe just take a second. So I did some research into PTSD. I mean it changed. There's just so many crazy things. Feeling lonely, feeling, your perception on the world changes, your perception on relationships can change. I'm not saying that this did it, but how did that make you feel going from, hey, I'm trained to take this on, to being like, this thing is just crippling me?
Yeah. It's something that like, I'm not going to say you're born with it, but like it's something that you either have or you don't. And like throughout your training, like they weed out the people that can and can't do that.
Right.
And it gets weeded out by training and being thrown into those situations. And for me specifically, like it's not the worst thing I ever dealt with. I've dealt with worse. It was just like the details of the file and like what was going on.
So it would just hit you different.
Something just snapped.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
And was there any other symptoms then from this event that you noticed?
Immediately, like I got physically ill.
Whoa.
Right away. Like I do my work. I used to do my work in like this room, and like there's lots of computers and all that stuff, and like there's a lot of like sensory stuff going on, and I had to leave, and I got physically ill right away. Whoa. And like immediately it just like felt like I couldn't talk. Like I felt like I was being choked.
Whoa.
Yeah, like it felt like there was a hand around my neck.
Oh my god.
And I just couldn't think, and my chest felt heavy, and I'm pretty sure like I was having panic attack.
Whoa.
Or having a panic attack.
So do you mind? Thank God I've never had one. I know people have had one, but do you want to take a minute and just, what is that like? Just so.
Oh, a panic attack is where you think you're going to die, but you know that you're not.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's very intense and very violent on the body. Okay. Usually, for most people, like it means that your chest hurts and you can't breathe and your stomach is tight and your mouth dries up, and like a lot of people like cry, like they start sobbing and they can't like think, and they end up in a ball in the corner.
Wow.
And they're like, oh, what's wrong with her? Like, oh, she's having a panic attack.
Oh my god.
And like that's what the symptoms were for me. Like I would have panic attacks. After that incident, I would have panic attacks probably daily.
Wow.
Yeah, so like I thought I was gonna die on the daily.
Wow. So, looking at the we know this relationship, just to kind of go back into just a tad, we know the relationship was starting to get red flags and stuff, but you talk about that, think of that compound effect now you have where you literally feel like you're going to die daily. That doesn't put you in a good state.
No, it doesn't.
And that's going to put, it's going to put anybody, the best of people, in just this brutal state of fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, in terms of like my relationship, so my ex and I, like, we were kind of rocky. Mm-hmm. We were in and out of a relationship, but I'm pretty sure at the time of my incident we were on, and I told him about what had happened, and I didn't really get dismissed, but he was like, "Oh, you'll pull out of it." Like,
right.
he tried to give me like a little bit of like pep, like,
go walk it off.
Yeah.
And see, that's a, it's another unfortunate, a brutal hit, because you're feeling like you're dying. Mm-hmm. And then the person, you're like, hey, I just need you to just be here. It's not. And that's brutal. So that kind of, again, compounds to this.
Yeah.
Right.
And it also, like, because of what had happened. So the incident happened, and it was on a night shift, and it was on my first night shift. After that night, I did not sleep for 6 months.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, and
like,
when I say like I didn't sleep, like,
yeah.
I would have like 2 and 3 hours, like not enough for REM or
right.
anything like that.
So I know that sleep for me is like religious.
Yes.
Like, my kids know I meditate every day. Mm-hmm. Life-changing thing, by the way. Everybody should do it, and do it daily, no matter what. But meditate, sometimes I'll use like CBD, a little bit of THC. Sometimes I use magnesium, and work out every day, because I've been there where I've not gotten sleep, even just for a few nights, and I'm an awful human.
You're a zombie.
I'm an awful human when I don't sleep. So
imagine
6 months. So multiply that by 6 months.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So.
But anyways, for that like particular week, I got into days off, and I kind of got the mentality that I was just gonna like walk it off, like I'll get to days off, and then I'll just sleep and rest, and like hang out with friends, and hang out with my ex, and everything will be okay. A few days later, into my days off, I woke up, or I didn't wake up, I was already awake, but I started the morning, and I was like, no, this is not going to be a good day. Like, I am thinking about it all the time. Like, I close my eyes, and I can hear things in my head, and like see like specific images, and like my brain was just absolutely melting.
So this is PTSD combined with no sleep.
Yeah.
Wow.
At this point.
So did you notice because of that, did you notice any other physical symptoms?
Shaking. Obviously the panic attacks.
I'm guessing you probably had no appetite. It was eating easy. Was that difficult?
No, I
hard?
wasn't eating, and I also made the mistake of like enjoying alcohol that week.
Right. To try to block and to maybe separate or change
just
focus.
To try and like carry on like normal activities that I would do on days off. So I I think I had like a few drinks with my friends, and like tried to not think about it, and I'm like, maybe the alcohol will like give me like take the edge off, sort of thing.
Right. Put me to sleep, something.
Obviously that didn't work. So this night I reached out to my ex, and he had plans. He had his work friends coming over, and he's like, you can come over afterwards. And I was like, I'm not doing well, like I really need you right now. And he was like, no, like I'm busy, you have to wait. And so
feeling a little bit more of that rejection, not there, you're reaching out. I'm reaching out, I need help. So I'm getting rejected, and that just made me feel absolutely worse. And by the time that he was like, okay, you can come over, like he was upset because I had been texting him and calling him, like trying to like rouse his attention, because I needed him. So when I got to his house, like he was mad, and he was like, go to bed, like you need sleep. And I was sobbing,
And I didn't sleep that night because I wasn't.
You weren't already sleeping.
Like, I was already on a pattern of not sleeping. And we got up in the morning, and instead of, taking actions into his own hands, he contacted my roommate at the time and told her to come collect me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in this, so again, feeling just rejection in this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
What happened then? Where were you, like, yeah, did you kind of reach a point at that point where you just said, like, this is too much, or?
You mean with the relationship?
With your relationship, yeah.
No, I was not in a state of mind to be able to, like, think about anything other than myself in that point. At that point, like, I was crying, like, I wasn't forming words, like, I remember him trying to talk to me, and
Right.
I remember seeing his lips move, but I couldn't understand what he was saying because I was just so messed up by not sleeping, by
the PTSD.
well, at that point it wasn't PTSD, it was acute stress disorder, but
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it was like
This
he was
event.
trying to talk to me, and I just like
So-
I was like, I don't know what you're saying.
So even if he, let's just say, paint him in a good picture for a moment, say if he was trying to do the right thing, it wouldn't even came through.
No, it was like not computing with me. It was,
Wow.
yeah, so
Overload. So much, too much overload.
yeah, but so my friends showed up. My roommate had like gotten one of my other friends to come with her because someone needed to drive my car, and I remember my roommate going like, "We're taking you to the hospital," and my other friend was walking around my ex's house, going, "Does she have anything here?" Like trying to collect my things.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we got outside, my friend was like, "You're never coming back here." And thinking back at it, I'm like, why didn't he take me to the hospital? Like, he deals with this kind of stuff all the time.
Right.
Like, he's trained to like deal with this stuff, so why can't he help me? His partner.
Right.
And so I did feel rejected, and I also felt like he was a bit dismissive.
Right.
And like he just
Right.
sloughed me off to my friends.
Okay, so then your friends take you to the hospital.
Yep. They take me to the hospital, and I get a mental health assessment, and no one could come in with me because it was during COVID times, and you weren't allowed to have a guest with you.
Okay.
But I sat down with the psych nurse and then a doctor, and they prescribed me Ativan for the panic attacks. And it was also supposed to help with sleep because it was supposed to lower my cortisol level so I could go to sleep.
Right.
It did not work.
Oh.
No.
Really?
It stopped the panic attack, so every time I felt like something was bubbling up inside me, I would take one. And I would also take it at night, and I would be more relaxed, but I still wouldn't sleep.
Wow. So it does, I've such a respect for the medical industry, and then sometimes I have such a bone to pick with them because, there are these scenarios where they do such an amazing job. And not putting blame on anybody, because you were in a brutal state. But this is where I like to bring it back to, the idea of, you're here, let's just give you a pill, versus that wasn't what you needed at the moment. They may have said, okay, well, it's what they knew. But really, it sounded like you needed to talk to somebody. You needed somewhere safe that you could just open up all these emotions, all these things you're feeling, and let everything out, to then have your body be able to calm down, to be able to sleep. And it wasn't there, and so this relationship didn't help, the doctor didn't help.
So when you go in for a mental health assessment, you sit down with the psych nurse, and they ask you like probably 100 questions. What do you do? Who do you live with? Do you have friends here? Do you have family here? Like, just questions about your life to try and like paint a picture of like who you are as a person. And they do, like, to a point, like, touch on your issues, but by the time I had gotten to the hospital, I'd calmed down, so they weren't like getting the full story. They weren't seeing me in such a like state where I couldn't form words, I couldn't hear words. So for situations like that, it's so important. The most integral part of that whole situation is when you're in it.
Yes.
And when you're feeling those feelings, and the person with you like plays a huge part in like how you're gonna deal with it.
Totally.
So for that situation, my ex sloughed me off to someone else,
right,
dismissed me,
so
and got me out the door so he didn't have to deal with me. He never said it like that, but like that's basically what it was.
yeah.
And
so
I just like thought, you know, if he's not taking this seriously, why should I?
Right. So moving forward, you were able to come out of the hospital. Obviously, you're here, so it's great.
Yeah.
So you weren't that crazy, just
not at that point.
No. Okay. So
that was my first mental health assessment, and throughout this whole thing, I have had at least 6.
Oh.
Where I've felt like I couldn't turn to anyone else, and I had to go to the hospital and have a doctor talk to me. And also, it was important for my medical files that all of this stuff be documented, so that someone could look back at it and be like, oh, okay, like she is struggling like a lot.
Right.
So I would go to the hospital like quite a bit throughout this whole journey.
Right. And so they were there to at least do what they could and do what they're trained to do.
Yeah.
And
which most time is prescribe you a pill.
Yeah, and again, like I said, is that, you know, there's a time and place. In the perfect world, in my opinion, it would be sitting down with a counselor, sitting down with a coach, sitting down with somebody, even just to hold space and just be like, hey, it's okay, you can cry for a while now.
Yeah.
You know, because to be honest, it sounded like what you needed.
And at that point in time, I didn't have a counselor. My work had an EAP program where like you could call this number and get a counselor for, I think, up to 5 sessions.
Right, okay.
And so I did that, but me and this therapist did not click. And it was also 5 sessions. Like, that's not enough for someone with PTSD.
Totally. I know when I did my counseling, I know I had to go through a few to find the right one, because you have to have a weird fit. It's a feeling. It's a gut feeling. And I think I did probably 12.
Yeah.
And I encourage everybody, do it. It is the best time you'll ever spend on yourself.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it's unfortunate weren't able to line up with somebody that was really helpful and be able to really pull you through this. So I guess my next question is, did this come to a final head or did this continue to get worse? And if so, what was that moment of like, this is the worst, or did it start to get better?
Okay, so the PTSD incident happened. A month later, after the PTSD incident and the week that led up to me going to the hospital happened, my ex and I, like, things just kind of got okay at that point. So we were talking, we were hanging out, like he was talking to me about my PTSD. I felt like, and I felt like we had like a little bit more common ground at that point because of what he did for work, and he also had it. So it was something
interesting. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but you said he had PTSD.
Yeah, because
I wonder though. I'm just, again, I don't want to make an excuse for anybody, but I wonder, you know, if you have PTSD from a traumatic event, and then you see somebody else going, I wonder if that kind of went, oh my God, he froze and panicked, and just was like, you know, at the moment when you were having it, and went, oh my God, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, to play devil's advocate,
totally, and not excusing him, but just something I just thought of now. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think he was diagnosed at that point, but it's assumed with the type of job that he does that, you know, most of them have it. And I knew that he had dealt with like a couple of like really bad situations, and I think I just assumed at that point. But we had common grounds. We would talk about mental health, and like things were good. Things were good. So to fast forward into May of 2020, we were hanging out and we were having a good time. And I remember we were driving back from a store, and I was driving down a hill, and he's like, I have something to tell you. And I was like, what? And I got this gut sinking feeling. And I was like, no, he's going to tell me something totally loaded.
Yeah.
And he told me that he was moving his ex-girlfriend down from the island to his house so they could figure out if they could have a relationship.
Wow. So it's bad. And then you guys start finding, having common ground. You're looking for, you're starting to build something here. And then he pulls this on you. So what was the first feeling that came to you when that happened?
I think I've told you this before, but like my first feeling was relief. And that sounds crazy, but I was relieved that my thoughts about their interactions and their like relationship weren't wrong.
Right. Okay.
And like the gut feeling that I had whenever he would talk about her, to just kind of like paint a picture, he told me twice at least throughout the relationship that he should have married her and had kids with her. And which is not something you say to your current girlfriend.
So he's definitely
no.
Okay. So your gut was right.
Yeah. So throughout the entire relationship, I just felt like very compared and very. I was like number 2 and she was number 1, basically.
So, but it kind of makes sense though. Then, if you, after telling me all this, that you're relieved.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, oh well, okay, that actually makes sense. Well, and not even just you're right. It was like it made sense. He's been talking about her anyway, and I do need to get out. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was your body.
Not what was going through my head.
No, but our bodies and our brains sometimes do opposite things, and maybe your body was going, yeah, hey, time to get out. And unfortunately, again, I've been there. Too many people, I think, have been in a relationship too long where they should have pulled out. Yeah. Should have left. So.
Yeah, and like, again, like I remember thinking like, oh, so I was right. Like I wasn't crazy in thinking that nothing was happening. Because they were obviously having very sneaky conversations about their feelings behind my back while we were in a relationship. So I was like, there was something happening and I knew it.
Right.
Then the next feelings I had were sadness and anxiety. And again, I told you I was driving. And so in my head, like I couldn't even hear him when he was talking to me after he said the words, I'm moving her down here for a relationship.
So
I was like, physical. Don't crash.
Right.
And I was having a very visceral reaction to it. I like my eyesight was just like moving in, and like I was getting tunnel vision, and like I was starting to have a panic attack.
Wow.
And it was pretty bad.
So what did you think you've learned? Because this was a lot. Mm-hmm. Like there's been a lot in this past few years. Mm-hmm. PTSD, not sleeping. This relationship that started out good, then it got bad, and then it was good for a little bit, and then it got bad. Your gut was saying break up and move and get out of there. Unfortunately, you didn't. No. And I've been there, and yeah. I think every 50% of people have probably been there. Mm-hmm. So what do you think you learned? Like, to look back at this now, what would you say to yourself if you're at any moment? Let's just say when you were in the hospital, what would you say to yourself then?
Well, that particular time, because there were times after that incident or after that day where he told me he was leaving me, that I was also in the hospital. And like that hospital visit that I told you about, like that wasn't even the big one. But for that particular moment, I would tell myself that a partner would be there for you no matter what, and they would prioritize you, especially if you were in a situation where in a situation that I was in. Like I was crying, I was upset, I was having panic attacks. Like something huge is happening to me, and I would expect that my partner would take everything else and be like, no, you're number 1 right now. Like, what do you need? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I guess I would tell myself that, like, this relationship is obviously not for you because you need to be number 1 and you're not.
Right. Absolutely. So did you feel that you were putting in, because I say what you put in is what you get out. So if you were putting in, let's say a half effort, I would expect that you'd get a half effort. Did you feel like you're putting in a full effort, or do you feel like it was half?
Before my incident, I was putting in probably 200% of the effort.
So you felt like you're putting in a lot and they're not matching. And that's tough, because again, you look at the relationship. Well, now you're adding to this, okay, well, I'm going through this tough time. I need my partner there. I'm putting myself out there. I'm doing these things. They're not there. So that's, I feel you on that. That's a very tough scenario.
Yep.
So do you feel like going through this relationship, do you feel like it made you stronger?
It made me stronger now.
Right.
There's more parts to the story that like the second kicked in the junk moment was when I got admitted to the psych ward.
Okay.
Yeah, that happened.
Wow.
And like leading up to that, so he left me, and then 6 months later I was being admitted to the psych ward. But there was like so many different things throughout the 6 months that were happening between me and him. That was just making me think that, oh, he's gonna come back to me, and like everything is gonna be okay. I just have to wait this out, and he'll come back.
Looking back, you recognize it was probably not the best thought pattern.
No. And before I was admitted to the psych ward, day before, I had made a plan to end my life.
Oh my God.
Yes. So I remember I was talking to him on the phone, and he was like very quick talking, and he was like, I don't have a lot of time to talk to you. I know I haven't talked to you all day, so I'm just like saying hi, but so-and-so was in the store, like his girlfriend. Was in the store, and she's gonna come out, and I'm gonna have to hang up. And I was like, what? Like, and in those moments I was like, I'm the side chick, and I'm gross.
Yeah.
So
it's a terrible feeling.
It was a terrible feeling, and I was like, he's never gonna leave her for me, and I'm gonna be stuck in this situation forever. And like, I just immediately got like the whole doom and gloom of it all.
Wow.
And
so you think at that moment, that's when everything came down, and you felt like
I was
you
suffering.
add everything up, the PTSD, the not sleeping, the in and out of this not good relationship, but it was the only thing that, looking at it now, especially with PTSD, you don't have any oxytocin, you don't have any dopamine, so it's somebody that gives you just even a little bit, even if it's not good, and it's not good, and your gut was literally telling you this isn't good, and so all this kind of piled up into one point, and then you went, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. And like, I think I was feeling that way for a while.
Right.
Like, I was feeling very low, very depressed. Like, it didn't take much to push me over the edge and like get me into like a panic mode or anything like that. Like, and like, that's no way to live.
No.
But it was that phone call that made me feel. It just pushed me over the edge.
It was the last. It was a straw.
Like,
it was a straw.
So, I can't do this anymore.
Wow. So you're here.
I'm here. So I didn't do it. But the next day, the day that I got admitted to the psych ward, I remember I was self-harming all day. Like, I wasn't eating. I wasn't drinking water. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was just in my house by myself, doing everything I could to like hurt myself. And I remember my ex calling me and texting me and trying to get a hold of me. And
interesting. So he, and I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. He just told you that he was like, hey, this is over. Was he the one that pulled you back from the edge?
Yes.
So, and not to, say he's a hero, but you do have to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
And again, you guys clearly are not meant to be together, but it is interesting that there might have, there was that, for whatever reason, for whatever small thing it was that he called you to stop you from doing that. And, you know, again, I've haven't never been in that scenario, but I do know there's times in my life where I was thinking about my ex, and I was like, man, that was, you know, yeah, I could be upset, but then I'm like, oh, there was these moments where you're like, you know what? Okay, I have to give credit where credit's due, unfortunately. So, you know, it's super unfortunate that it had to be him.
Yeah, and it was very unfortunate that it had to be him. I mean, he was the only one that really saw through my bullshit on that day and was like, no, you're doing something nefarious to yourself. Like, we need to get you checked out. And like, that was the day that he was like, no, I need to do this. Right. And so he came and picked me up and took me to the hospital and saw what I had done to myself and saw the situation I was in, and he was like, holy crap. And I remember he called my dad, and my dad met us at the hospital, and I remember sitting in the interview room where they take mental health patients, and like, he stayed with me until I fell asleep that night.
Not the right person. So I think really, if you looked at this person, I think in his heart, I don't think he meant any harm. No. I do, not that what he did was right, you know, with all the ins and outs and all the intricacies, but you can see at that, you know, moment when it was like, oh my God, this is it. I think he did the right thing. It just, unfortunately, like I said, was something you're trying to get away from. So
I feel like everyone does things that they think that are right. They're not always right, but like, it's true. They feel like in the moment they are doing what is right in that situation. Totally.
And it's an interesting thing to think of, that you're right and my right can be two different things, and that, oh, I'm doing this because it's good, and this, and these justifications. And in your head, it could be something completely different. So I guess then, what would you learn from all this? What would be the wisdom to pass down onto somebody? We've all been in bad relationships. Yeah. Too many people have been in bad relationships. A lot of people suffered from PTSD, insomnia. So, and you had all kind of the trifecta of awful into one. What would be the lesson? The wisdom.
There's many lessons to learn here.
All right.
Number one would be to know when to walk away from a relationship that's not serving you. Yeah. And that is so hard to do. And I know a lot of women like stay in a relationship way longer than they should. Absolutely. Just because they have someone who is kind of paying attention to them. But they're making space for a person that, you know, doesn't deserve it. And they could be making space for someone who gives them everything that they want, gives them the attention, gives them the love, gives them, like, meets their needs. And so, right, like, just learning when to walk away and see the red flags is like very important. For PTSD though, like, it's so hard because it doesn't happen in a vacuum. So when you're in this situation, it's really hard to like take yourself out of it and be like, no, I need to do this and this and this. You're just spiraling. So it's really important to have people in your life to like direct you and be like, get you to stop spinning and push you into a direction. Yeah. So for my situation, like, I really needed someone to be like, no, you need to go to a counselor or a therapist or a psychologist, like, now.
So a support system. Yeah. So, and what about for, I guess, the sleep side, the lack of sleep side, anything there, or even better yet, if there are people out there that are thinking their life is better off not being lived than lived, what would you say to them?
It's very cliche, but it does get better. Oh. Like, my life is, I'm still hitting the reset button and like.
Yes, because you're like, this is only a few months out.
Yeah, so I only recently stopped talking to my ex in February, so I'm coming up to almost a month of no contact.
And yet you're still able to see some of the wisdom from this. Yes. And which is very...
but it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, totally, but I think what you'll find is the more time you have to step away from that, you'll start seeing more lessons. Yeah. And more value and more things, and like, that was
that was really awful, but my prediction is that it's going to set you up for something so much better in the near future.
Well, they say when you hit rock bottom, you can only go up.
Exactly. It only gets better.
But yeah, like I said, like I just hit the restart button. So I'm in school, like I'm getting a new career. I am
Good for you.
getting back out there in terms of dating. I am working on myself.
Yes.
And it's really important to really practice self-love in those situations.
I was hoping
and actually,
you would say that.
yes, and I actually saw something on Instagram the other day that made me think about what I should say here. And it said, when you learn to self-love, that's when your taste in men changes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's so beautiful and so true. I know for myself, when I remember splitting up with my ex, I was together for 10 some years. I remember that was the hardest lesson for me, was to go back, because here I'm going, oh, well, this person doesn't love me anymore, this, is to realize, like, I can love myself, and to start with that, and not just be like, oh, I love myself, but I'm really looking around, but truly just be like, I love who I am, I love that I do this, and find those concrete things. So
and like being okay in your own energy, and like taking yourself out on dates, and
just
doing things by yourself,
and yes, and it's super hard because I like to be around people, but it's so needed. And I love to hear that. I'm so glad that you're able to move, and again, being fresh out, that you're already able to see some of these lessons, and you're able to pass this down. And I know there's some other people out there that are going to listen to this and be inspired and just make some positive change in their life because of you. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story.
So thank you so much for listening to this episode of Kicked in the Junk. Just to recap, we learned the value of listening to your gut. I know the more I listened to my gut, the more I started just really honing in on how I was feeling about a certain decision. Made my life so much better, and I made such better decisions that were just so life-changing. Keeping friends close, keeping friends that you trust close, and keeping your family close, because they can always help you in those dark times. And self-love. I would even say self-care, to just kind of make that, just broaden it, that loving yourself first and caring for yourself first, because you're going to be in your body for the rest of your life, and you're going to be in your own mind for the rest of your life. So please, something to think about there. And if you have a story that of you being kicked in the junk, or when the universe, or had some troubling times that have happened to you, I would love for you to reach out so we could share your story and look at what you've learned, and just help other people learn this. So thank you so much for listening. Please share, like, and comment. I know it does so much, not only for this, what we're doing here, but for other people, because that's what it's all about. It's about to share the wisdom that we all have. So again, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.